We've got so many bye weeks and so many injuries at the running back position to worry about in Week 7 fantasy football. We've got to go through every single matchup. We've got to find every single guy that is startable and every single guy that is not startable we should not consider. So today we're getting into the must start and sit Week 7 fantasy football running backs. I'm going through every single matchup and we're going to decipher all those guys. Thank you guys for 6,000 subscribers. I sincerely appreciate your support every day. I need your help hitting 7,000. So please go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. It is greatly appreciated, guys. Let's go ahead and just start diving through these matchups right now. So obviously, like I said, there's a ton of bye weeks. So it's going to be that much more pivotal for us to find the right options. The first matchup we've got up is the Jaguars at the Saints this week. And obviously, Travis Etienne is right there at must start. You cannot sit Travis Etienne. Top 3 running back in fantasy football. He's been one of the best players on that Jacksonville Jaguars offense. And I said it all offseason. I just have to toot my own horn about that because I was all over Travis Etienne while a lot of people were worried about Tank Bigsby. That has not come to fruition. Alvin Kamara is definitely must start as well. Alvin Kamara is just a volume guy right now, but he's also got some big plays attached. Now, I don't know if it's going to be a great week for Alvin Kamara. I have not ranked my running backs yet. That video will be out on Saturday. But I do think that Alvin Kamara will have a better week this week than he did last week. But either way, Alvin Kamara is clearly the running back one in this offense. So I would definitely go ahead and start him because he still handles rushes and targets as well. So he's got plenty of work attached to him. Nobody's in flex territory. Like I said, they're both clearly the running back one on their offense. So Kendre Miller, you go ahead and sit him because not only does he not get anything, but he hasn't been that good with his touches either. Jamal Williams, by the way, not on here, but he is supposed to come back off the IR this week. You don't play him either. And you don't play Tank Bigsby. Falcons at Buccaneers is the next matchup here. Listen, I get it. Bijan Robinson has not been good lately. It's been just inefficient. You know, it's not been good for Bijan Robinson. I'm going to play him again for sure. And this is not a matchup that I am exactly excited for. But Bijan Robinson is simply too good of a player for me to sit. Now, the ultimate problem here is that they're actually limiting his touches right now. It's not been great, but honestly, you just can't sit Bijan Robinson because you know that type of player is capable of hitting a big play at any time. Not just through the run, but also through the air as well. Bijan Robinson's averaging 5 yards a carry. So he's just too efficient. He's too explosive a player for you to put on your bench in any single week. Rachaad White, I think he's a flex guy. I don't consider him a must start anytime. I said it over the offseason. I don't think Rachaad White was a very good player to have in fantasy football. And a lot of the reasons why are coming to fruition this season. Rachaad White is inefficient. He's averaging less than 4 yards per carry. He's not getting that many carries on a regular basis. And really, the targets that I thought were going to be there have actually slowed down over the weeks. Rachaad White, even in a great matchup, I don't consider a must start. Higher end flex option for sure, but I would not say must start. Tyler Algier is still flexible. Lower tier flex option because he hasn't been that efficient over the past couple weeks, but he is getting the volume. He got 13 carries last week, 17 carries the week before. So I do think that Tyler Algier is a legit option that you could flex if you're desperate with bye weeks or injuries, or if you're just in a deeper league. I think he's a fine flex option. Everybody else, you go ahead and sit. Raiders at Bears, the next matchup here. Josh Jacobs, obviously, must start. Josh Jacobs has been getting better every week. He had a little bit of a down week last week, but he was still relatively good at fantasy football. Good thing about Josh Jacobs is he gets all the carries, and he also gets a lot of targets as well. Volume's there, big playability still there. Josh Jacobs must start every week, especially in this type of matchup versus the Chicago Bears. I love the matchup. Roschon Johnson and Deonta Foreman, they're in flex territory for me. Now, I think Roschon Johnson, I put him a tier above Deonta Foreman, but to be clear, I am not sure exactly what's going to happen because here's what I've noticed with Deonta Foreman over the years. Deonta Foreman is always the guy who comes in and is relieving whoever is getting injured, and usually Deonta Foreman comes in these types of circumstances where not just one, but 2 of the running backs are down. So Deonta Foreman also comes in and does pretty well. Well, he did last week. He did pretty well against the Minnesota Vikings. He had over 60 rushing yards. Like, D'Onta Foreman is not a bad football player. I think they're probably going to start Roschon Johnson, though. That's just a hunch. So, I've got Roschon Johnson a tier above, but I would not say that Roschon Johnson's a high-end flex start. I get it. The matchup is really good, but this offense, I think, is going to be... Without Justin Fields this week, I don't think they're going to be efficient at all. I think it's going to be a gross week for fantasy football on the Bears. And I just don't have enough clarity on who the guy is. So if you want to take a shot on Roschon, if you want to take a shot on D'Onta Foreman, I can understand why. Everybody else is sit. I've got no interest in anybody else, obviously. Browns at Colts is the next matchup here. Jonathan Taylor, I'm going to continue to play him. And here's why. Jonathan Taylor is very similarly to a Josh Jacobs early in the season. So, Josh Jacobs' first 3 weeks were terrible, right? Everybody remembers his first 3 weeks. What's important to note here about Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor's situations is they both missed basically the full offseason with the team. Not only were they not with the team, building chemistry, things of that nature, the culture, they were also not on a football field, not taking real hits from defenders, not reading defenses and coverages and schemes and everything, not trusting their offensive line and reading holes. You don't just walk back into a football field after a bunch of missed time like Jonathan Taylor did. Jonathan Taylor missed way more time than Josh Jacobs. Jonathan Taylor hasn't played since like week 11 or 12 in 2022. So you don't come back in immediately and just be great. And Jonathan Taylor has not been. But what I will say is Jonathan Taylor is on the Josh Jacobs trajectory, actually faster, because he did improve last week. He did hit a big play last week. He had a big reception. Jonathan Taylor's going to be fine. Obviously, the matchup is not great versus the Browns. I'm not going to say he's going to be a great play this week, but Jonathan Taylor to me is still a start because he handled more volume than Zach Moss did last week, and he's going to find his groove. I believe 100% he will find his groove, and I have lots of confidence telling my audience that. Jerome Ford is a decent flex option. Like, he may be better than I thought. Like, he might be a little bit better than I thought. Jerome Ford is simply just a guy that I don't think I can trust week to week because Deshaun Watson's absence is definitely not great for this team, although they did just beat the 49ers. So, I think Jerome Ford is startable. I just am not particularly excited. The Colts defense is relatively good as well. Not as good as the 49ers, so Jerome Ford's definitely an upper tier flex start. Zach Moss, I think, is middle tier. If you want to take the shot on a big play guy, Zach Moss has become a big play guy. Because as I just said, Zach Moss had less volume last week than Jonathan Taylor, but he still outproduced him in fantasy football by a lot. So Zach Moss is definitely worthy of a flex play here. He's not someone I'm excited to flex necessarily, but I do think at a mid-tier level, a guy who doesn't get a ton of volume but has big play upside, he's a guy you could definitely take a shot on. Everybody else is must sit. Commanders at Giants here. Saquon Barkley must start again for sure. Saquon Barkley came back, handled 24 carries last week against the Bills, almost had 100 rushing yards against the Bills. He's pretty good. And he's their whole offense as well. And they've got a better matchup this week. Much better. Taking on the Commanders defense. I like Saquon Barkley having at least 100 yards all-purpose and possibly a touchdown in this game. Saquon Barkley right back in your lineup. No concerns here. Brian Robinson, I think, is a must-start this week. And to be clear, Brian Robinson's last couple weeks have not been good. And he's dropped in efficiency as I always thought he would. He's averaging less than 4 yards per carry now, but the matchup is tremendous. You're getting the Giants defense, which is one of the best matchups for a running back, let alone just an entire offense, right? Like, so Brian Robinson, I do think is a great start this week because of the defense that he's playing, but he's not exactly a guy that I'm looking forward to starting week by week because the guy's upside is just simply not that high. Nobody's in flex territory because very similarly to the first matchup we went over, both of these guys are clearly the main backs in their offense. Everybody else you sit, Antonio Gibson, if you've got him, I've said just drop him at this point. He's dead weight. Nobody else should be even in consideration. Lions at Ravens, next matchup here. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts here. Jahmyr Gibbs, if he plays, you play Jahmyr Gibbs. 100%, no questions, because Jahmyr Gibbs is looking like he's coming off an injury. So he appears to be ready to go. I don't have a ton of news yet since I'm filming this on Tuesday night. But if he does play, you play Jahmyr Gibbs. Look, the Ravens matchup is not great. That's not a great defense to take on. But the Lions team is just too good. And their offensive line is just too good. I'm playing a running back in this matchup one way or the other. If it was Craig Reynolds, I'd play him too. Really. I would not say I'm excited to play Craig Reynolds. I'm decently excited to play Jahmyr Gibbs. If he goes, I'm going with Jahmyr Gibbs. Easy money. The matchup is not great, but the offensive line is. Craig Reynolds, if Jahmyr Gibbs does not go, flex territory for sure. Flex territory, and I would put him in the lower tier of must-start options. But again, totally dependent on Jahmyr Gibbs. If Gibbs plays, I'm not playing Craig Reynolds. Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, same story every single week. 1 week, Gus Edwards has a touchdown. 1 week, it's Justice Hill. It's unpredictable. If you want to take the shot, go on that merry-go-round. Be my guest. I'm not looking to play those guys in many situations, but I get it. You're in deeper leagues. You got injuries. You got bye weeks. So you might have to take the shot. Understandable. Everybody else, irrelevant. Bills and Patriots. James Cook is must start. I still do believe that. James Cook is coming off a couple weeks where he's just been really underwhelming. I get it. I totally get it. But what's important to remember is James Cook is still efficient. He's averaging just under 5 yards per carry, and they're playing the Patriots, a team that is in a total tailspin right now. Defensively, they're awful. Offensively, they're awful, which makes their defense even worse. James Cook is must start to me. I think they'll probably run for I think James Cook has at least 20 carries in this game. I've got no issue starting James Cook. It will be a more week-to-week situation with James Cook moving forward, but James Cook to me is a great must-start option this week against that defense. Ramondre Stevenson, I have seen is dealing with an injury this week, but I do consider him a pretty strong flex option because last week he did come back. He did play much better. He got into the end zone. Ramondre Stevenson is the best piece of this offense. There's no question about it. They need the guy. They need him one way or the other, either if it's running the ball or if it's throwing the ball. Ramondre Stevenson is needed in this offense. Not a great matchup at all, which is why he's in flex territory, but I do think he's a relatively stronger flex option. Damian Harris, obviously coming off that neck injury, he's not going to be good to go either. Ezekiel Elliott, Patriots offense sucks. Don't play anybody else besides Ramondre. Cardinals and Seahawks. Kenneth Walker's great. And I remember saying this for several weeks, and after the bye week, I had a lot of questions like, should I sell Kenneth Walker? And it's like, no, don't sell Kenneth Walker. He's been great in fantasy football so far. Getting a much better matchup this week than last week. Kenneth Walker's a no-brainer. It's so easy. Kenneth Walker must start every single week. Efficiency, pass catching upside starting to show itself. Kenneth Walker's been great. He does not belong on your bench. Nobody's flex territory. I am sitting every single Cardinals running back. Last week, in my waiver wire video, I said Amari DeMarcado was total fool's gold. Do not pay up for the guy. If you did, I'm sorry. I wish you would have seen that video because Amari DeMarcado handled 2 carries last week. But it's not like one of them was a dominant lead back. Keontae Ingram had 10 carries. Damian Williams had 8. There's no answer in this backfield, and the matchup sucks, so I'm not playing any of them. Not a single one of them. I advise my audience, do not play a Cardinals running back this week. It is not going to be a good move, and even with all the injuries and all the bye weeks, I'm not playing an Arizona Cardinals running back. Steelers at Rams. Listen, nobody's must start. Obviously, the Rams have got just a carousel at running back that we're going to get to in a minute. None of them, I don't think, are must start. I don't even know what the workload's going to be like. We haven't seen any of these guys that they're about to roll out there get any touches this year. So it's kind of hard to tell who's going to be the guy. Steelers running backs, I can't tell you guys they're must starts. Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, they're in not upper tier, but they're in middle tier of flex options. Jaylen Warren, to me, at this point, is a better flex option than Najee Harris. That's just the simple reality. I think they're going to continue to get the same amount of workload. But Najee Harris is just simply not as good and not as efficient as Jaylen Warren is. So I'd play Jaylen Warren over Najee Harris at this point. I don't want to play either. They're just bad options. They're bad options. Zach Evans is the guy that if I had to pinpoint, I think will be the starter. He's been on the roster the longest out of all those guys. He handled carries during that same week last week when both Ronnie Rivers and Kyren Williams went down. I have a feeling it's going to be Zach Evans that gets the most amount of touches. Royce Freeman, he's in second place because he was on their practice squad. He got activated to the active roster. So he's been with the team. Both those guys have been with the team. So Zach Evans to me is the guy that I would choose. And then it's Royce Freeman below him. But they're both relatively middle tier options because here's the thing. I want to start a Rams running back this week. I think they're going to do well against the Steelers. But I can't trust either of them enough to tell you they're higher end flex options or even must start options. Myles Gaskin, Darrell Henderson, they were both signed to the team yesterday. I don't trust it. They just got to the building. I don't think there's any upside there. Chargers at Chiefs. Next matchup here. Austin Eckler, no-brainer. He was not great last week, but he was getting back into the groove of things, made big plays. Let's move on. You play Austin Eckler. Isaiah Pacheco is must start. Listen, there are two top options in the Chiefs offense that are consistently reliable. Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco. Those are the two guys. Isaiah Pacheco is going to get 16 to 20 plus carries or touches every single week. There's no question about it. You continue to play Isaiah Pacheco. Nobody's in flex territory because both those guys are handling the majority of the volume. I think that Jerick McKinnon, he's been in the past a flex option. It just hasn't been enough there lately. I need to see more. I'm going to tell you guys to sit Jerick McKinnon this week. Packers at Broncos. Aaron Jones is supposed to come back. You play Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones in this matchup, you play him. You play any running back that goes against the Denver Broncos. That's the simple answer here. Aaron Jones comes back. He goes right back into your lineup because he's playing the Denver Broncos. Javonte Williams is flexible, middle tier. Listen, that Denver Broncos backfield is a mess. I mean, the whole team is a mess, but like Javonte Williams is not handling the majority of the backfield. Jaleel McLaughlin, he's relevant now. Samaje Perine, he's come back to relevancy. It's a mess, but Javonte Williams is the one I still do prefer, and he's a middle tier flex option. Jaleel McLaughlin, Samaje Perine, I'm going to put them on my bench because, like I said, there's not enough there for Broncos running backs for me to play all three of them or even two of them. I got one guy I prefer, and it's Javonte Williams to tell you guys to start. A.J. Dillon, you don't play him if Aaron Jones is active. Dolphins and Eagles. Raheem Mostert, continue to ride the freaking wave. The guy's been excellent. There's no way around it. He's been absolutely phenomenal in fantasy football. It's ridiculous to watch. I mean, this offense is just one of the greatest explosive offenses I've seen in a long time. You don't sit any Dolphins players. DeAndre Swift, continue to play him. He had 10 total carries last week. They're going to learn from that mistake. They're going to give him a lot of carries this week. I wouldn't be surprised if DeAndre Swift actually has a really, really good bounce back game this week. You don't sit DeAndre Swift. Jeff Wilson Jr., if the guy plays, I see the merit here playing him. Totally see the merit. Because as I just said, this Dolphins offense is phenomenal. Phenomenal. So even if Jeff Wilson gets like 7 or 8 touches, he could probably get in the end zone. That's how efficient this offense is. With every single player who touches the ball, they're so extremely efficient. So yeah, I think Jeff Wilson is a plenty good start here. If you wanted to play him as a must start, I wouldn't do that just because we don't know what kind of volume he'll see. But as far as being a upper tier flex option, he's there for me. He's there for me if he goes. Kenneth Gainwell, you sit him. It was a sad story, actually. He started out the year as a starter, got injured. DeAndre Swift's better. Kenneth Gainwell has 2 touches last week. It's bad. It's not happening. Salvon Ahmed, if Jeff Wilson is back, it's not going to be playable. If Jeff Wilson is not back, I would say Salvon Ahmed is a lower tier flex option. 49ers at Vikings, the Monday night matchup, obviously it's a mess. Christian McCaffrey, no news yet on whether he's going to go or not. I've seen that he's day-to-day, and what I've seen is that it's a pain tolerance thing, which is a pretty good sign. It means that he did not do any significant damage. If he plays, obviously you play him. I don't care if he's limited. The Vikings matchup is great, which is exactly why Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason are tentatively in must-start territory. If McCaffrey doesn't go and Elijah Mitchell goes, Elijah Mitchell's the guy I prefer. We've seen the history with him. I get it. Jordan Mason had the majority last week. But Elijah Mitchell, we've seen the history, and we know that he's a really, really good player. So if Elijah Mitchell goes and McCaffrey doesn't, he's the priority guy. Now, Elijah Mitchell's dealt with plenty of injuries this year himself. Not just this year, forever. So Jordan Mason, if he's the one, he's must start. Regardless of what happens, whoever this running back is in San Francisco, I consider must start. Totally do. Matchup is great. Offensive line's great. Offense as a whole is great. Kyle Shanahan's a great play caller. I want a 49ers running back one way or the other. Alexander Madison's flexible. Higher end guy because he gets the volume, but this matchup sucks. The offense has not looked good, and they don't run the ball much. So ceiling's always going to be low with Alexander Madison, and everybody else is a sit for me. So let me know what questions you need answered before Week 7 fantasy football in the comments below. And if you want to see the must start and sit tight ends for Week 7 fantasy football, click on this video right here.